Hello, everyone. Wow, we are here doing episode 10 for Survivor Brawn Beauty 2. And it's so crazy. It's like the season is almost over. It's going to end in like mid-May and the finale and everything. But this episode was sort of lackluster, I feel like, except for the tribal council was pretty good. Something like you could only dream of happening. So my name is Rachel.
And I'm Alyssa, and you guys can see my face this week. Yay!
Ah!
We figured out the technical difficulties that was making my camera not work, so everything is A-okay.
Yippee! So, we saw the episode. It started out with Jason and Scot being cocky AF. They were always super arrogant and overconfident. So, they're still over the moon at this point right now.
I just think, I think that the fact that someone who wasn't them went home a tribal kind of put more wind in their sails, because it kind of proved to them that their idol was something that they could use. The super idol, the threat of it was enough to keep people from voting them out. And if they had continued on that trajectory, then they would have been able to get to easily the final 6 without even using the super idol, which is a good thing. So
yeah, that's what I feel like. When Debbie got voted out, they just got even more cocky, and then they're Scot mentions being like Russell Hantz. Then he basically threatens Aubrey, saying I'm the bigger person, I'm not going to be immature anymore. I'm going to bring back the machete and the axe, but only if we vote out Sydney next time. Dude, I don't really think that's the best way to try to make an alliance or try to be nice with everyone by basically threatening them, saying if we don't vote out Sydney, you're not going to get the axe back.
It was so passive aggressive. We are teenage girls, so we know stuff about passive aggressiveness, and Scot was top level right there.
Yeah, they're saying Sydney is the petty backstabber, but dude, that's sort of how the game works. You sometimes have to backstab someone so you can get yourself further, and it's I don't know. I don't really understand. They're super emotional, but Scot seems like a nice dude outside of the game from his Ponderosa video and everything. So we can talk about that once we get to tribal. But I don't know, just the way they're acting in the game isn't really someone you'd want to be friends with outside of the game. And Ty gives the idol back to Jason right after tribal.
I don't understand why you do that. Just because an idol once given, it's not like Jason can force him to give it back. And I feel like having a super idol all by yourself would be a lot more power, and then Ty wouldn't have to worry about doing what Scot and Jason said, especially considering he began to realize that he didn't really get any sort of contribution to their alliance. Scot and Jason made the decision, and they kind of just pulled Ty along as a number, really.
Yeah, exactly. If I were Ty, I'd be like, nay, Jason, I can hold on to it and be all friendly, woohoo, but then use it to backstab Jason and Scot later because, you gave me your idol, I'm going to steal it now. But Ty, being a really nice person, is like, here you go, Jason. And I guess it sort of worked out in the end, but if Ty just took the idol, he would have 2 idols and that extra advantage.
Which is big, so
yeah, so I guess it worked out, but when we get to the end in tribal council, I don't know, he could have been so much more powerful. And even now, after he's flipping on the guys, he doesn't even have all that much power technically.
Yeah, he doesn't really. Just because leading an alliance of 3, I feel like it's one of those things where you feel like you have a lot of power, but really you have nothing at all. So
yeah, so moving on to the reward challenge, they are holding the pots on a balance beam with one foot standing on the other foot. It's sort of like in Blood versus Water 1 on Redemption Island when that was the last challenge to get back into the game. So It was interesting. They added the twist of you can either pick to play for food, love, or advantage, and I think there is so much strategy to pick, like which of the three choices you want.
I think the part of it is like people try to out psychology each other. Like they're like, well, I know that blah 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 is gonna pick blah blah blah, so I'm going to pick blah 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 because blah 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 won't expect. Like you try to like figure out which one's gonna have the least amount of people playing for it, and then you end up just screwing yourself over. And in the end, it ended up being pretty even. It was 3-3-2. So.
Yeah, it wasn't like a totally rigged one where everyone picks one thing. And I mean, picking food and love is sort of like the easier kind of thing to pick. I mean, love, if like for some people that can really help like boost your morale and get you through the end of the game. Food definitely can help you in the immunity challenge at the next challenge because you have the food and you're not eating. But then advantage, getting the advantage in front of everyone. So we can talk about that after. But so Julie and Joe pick love, Scott, Michele, and Jason pick food, and then advantage is Sydney, Ty, and Aubrey. And for love, Joe just drops out in like 2.5 seconds already, and Julia wins like the love letter from home. And it's like, Joe, what the heck?
So muscly, but he can't do anything.
That's what I'm saying.
He doesn't seem to have any sense of balance, and I think it's just because he's a cute little old guy. And also, if he's deaf, he probably has like inner ear problems, and that can destroy your sense of balance, maybe.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, maybe Joe is just acting weak, so then people will be more likely to want to take him to the end because he was the first out in the reward challenge and the immunity challenge this week. He barely lasts like any time up there, but he works out on the island and everything. And it's like, dude, at least you can try some and, stay up for maybe more than 1 minute.
I feel like it's one of those things where like the bigger guys often have trouble like keeping going in Survivor since they need so much fuel to power all that muscle. Mm-hmm. Like Scott obviously lost a lot of weight. It's as you saw if you watched his Ponderosa video. So maybe it's sort of the same thing with Joe. Maybe.
Yeah, I know. Joe, we were all thinking, oh, he's a buff old dude. He can be like, the typical archetype or stereotype of buff old dudes that like win all immunity challenges like Keith or something. But no, Joe hasn't had that power yet.
Maybe like once it's just him and the girls left, he'll do better.
Yeah, since he'll be like totally dragged to the end since he's literally not on the island. But Julia wins the love, and then it's Michele versus Scott and Jason, which I thought it was really interesting how, like, for each separate win, it went like one person dropped out and then the whole thing dropped out. And then so it wasn't like one person dropped out of food and then one person dropped out of love. It was like it went in 3 separate things. And I was like, yes, Michele to win because she mentioned how Scott and Jason were always blabbing about wanting a cheeseburger. So I was like, heck yeah, Michele, take that food.
It's one of those things where you win out of spite. Like, I think that Michele would have been able to, like, live if she didn't have the cheeseburger or whatever, but since she was just wanting to piss off Scott and Jason, it was a little easier.
Yeah, I know. That's why I wanted her to win. I was like, heck yeah, don't let them eat that cheeseburger.
And then the advantage, I thought it was really interesting because at that time it was 2 people from one alliance versus 1 person from the other alliance. And Ty totally pulled his I am bamboo waving in the wind type thing.
I know, I never, yeah.
No, you can go.
Oh, I never thought Ty would be like winning so many challenges. Like he's like the scrawniest dude out there and he's pretty old too. And he's like the skinniest one even out of like males and females, but he's like rocking it. I never thought, that this small dude would be winning so much.
I think it's because he has like really lithe muscle. Like he doesn't look like super muscly, but he is.
What were you going to say before that?
I don't remember anymore.
Yeah, so I mean, Ty wins that, and so he gets the advantage, which turns out to be an extra vote, a la Stephen Fishback from last season, which was actually filmed.
Not the same, Rachel Lynn. Because Steven got to steal a vote, which is a lot different from getting an extra vote.
Okay, so this is like the season with Will and Dan, when Dan got the extra vote.
Yeah. And
even worse.
I think it's kind of interesting because, like, last season we saw how, like, how Steven's game kind of imploded as a result of getting that advantage because people were so afraid of the advantage that they, like, didn't want to risk him using it against them. So I think that it'll be interesting to see if the same thing happens with Ty. But it's kind of hard because I think about it like season 31 was filmed first, but obviously that didn't happen. So
yeah, I know. Like, so this season was filmed before Second Chance, and it's like now I'm getting these bad Will and Dan flashbacks. It's peeving me off, but nobody has like played this kind of advantage successfully yet because Dan didn't use it well, and then we saw last season Fishback didn't use it, but it's so hard to figure out what's the right move to use it as because there's so many different factors. So it's like, how do you think Ty should play this in the future?
I feel like it's one of those things where you should use it when you have an even number of people, just because obviously if you have an even number of people, if you're split into two factions, you can have a tie, which is not good because that results in drawing rocks. And I feel like if you can make an even number person vote into an odd number person vote, then that's good because that gives you the majority for the next vote as well. So
yeah, that's true. Or even yeah, I mean, like Fishback did, like if you split the votes and use it, it's sort of, difficult, I guess, because there's so many different things. If one person flips and then, it wouldn't work, but definitely with even and odd. So I feel like, or even like next week, if, because it'd be like 4-3 if Ty stays with Julia and Jason, so like they could technically get a 4-4 and then try to persuade someone to try to flip so they won't be drawing rocks, because even like the fear of having to draw rocks might make someone flip from the other side. But I feel like, I don't know, I don't feel like Ty's going to go with Jason and Julia at this point. So, but I mean, there is a huge target on Ty's back now because he does have an idol and he has an and this advantage. So I think, his days might be numbered soon if like he doesn't play it correctly or everyone's gunning for him for the next few votes, because there's 7 people left and he has to use it before like 5 people, the idol.
yeah.
So he's running out of time to use it. They're running out of time to get him out before final 5.
I think that like it makes a lot of sense to get Ty out sooner rather than later just because he is such a likable person. And it's like if you have the choice between keeping Ty around and Jason around, it's like it seems like a no-brainer to keep Ty, but then as they're getting closer and closer to the final 3 or the final 2 or whatever, you want to start keeping the more unlikable people just because that way you can drag them along to the finals with you and basically get the money real easy because no one likes him.
Yeah, I know. That's like what I'm basing my next vote off of for next week. Because, you got to take these sort of people that people don't like to the end and like the goats to the end, so you have a higher chance of winning. So, I don't think Ty's going to make it to the end. He's got a few weeks left maybe, but I literally don't. They won't let him. And now, like, we'll talk about at the end, the good move versus bad move. Like, I don't know. Ty is in a sticky situation now. So before the immunity challenge, we see everyone talking and making their plans for what happens after the immunity challenge. So all the people, all the girls in them are basically saying, we need to try to flush one of the idols because out of the 3 guys, 2 of the guys have idols. That is a sticky situation. That is going to cause a lot of problems. And, you don't want to be idled out of a game. That would just suck. So Julia thinks of the plan of wanting to flush the idols by voting for Ty so then she can stay true to Jason and Scot. And I mean, I feel like people can sort of see right through this because obviously you're gonna aim for Ty if you like Jason and Scot, and Julia might have some chance of winning against Jason or Scot, maybe, depending how the jury is feeling.
I think that, like, Julia, her thing is, like, she spent so long in the middle that now that she's choosing a side, no one really wants to believe that she's choosing a side. So I think that for her, like, trying to vote out Ty just isn't a smart idea just because he is so well liked and people aren't really thinking about that at this point because there's still the kind of faction war in between the two alliances that needs to be resolved before they can start thinking about going to the finals and stuff. So I think that Julia made, like, a good move trying to get out Ty, but she made it for the wrong reasons at the wrong time.
Yeah, I agree with that because I feel like Julia's playing the sort of middle too blatantly, too obviously, you know. Everyone knows she's sort of with the girls and also with Jason and Scot. And like she voted with the girls last week and she was left out of the loop this week, but she voted for Ty, which was her plan originally, and she told all the girls that. So I mean, next week the preview shows Julia teaming up with Jason. So basically she is being like, oh, I'll work with you until, you know, working with them fits me better. So it's like, oh, Jason, Scot, you know, I'll have an alliance with you, but, you know, maybe wait a few weeks before we can actually team up. And, you know, I don't know. Just, I feel like she might be more disliked than Jason or Scot if she went to the final with Jason. Like, Jason could win because Aubrey and all the girls might feel backstabbed by Julia if she jumps ship and then it ends up like that pagongs all the girls out of the game.
I think that for Julia, again, it's one of those, like, good choice, probably wrong reason things.
Mm-hmm.
Where, like, if it comes down to we're trying to begong the other alliance, who are we going to give one more week? Between the choice of Jason and Julia, people will probably be more willing to vote out Jason. And then, like, Julia buys herself the chance to win the immunity idol next to win individual immunity or find the immunity idol or something to keep herself in for another week. And I think when you're playing from the bottom alliance, like she now is, that has to be your main concern. So being in an alliance with people who are disliked is like kind of a double-edged sword.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And I feel like Aubrey is like really good at like reading people and talking with people. And like we see Aubrey and Ty talking this episode and like she really knows how to have that conversation that relates with a person. So she talking about like the heart versus the brain and then it's like which one do I listen to right now? And a lot of people seem to like Aubrey. Ty says that he likes her. Nick liked her and was saying before he got voted out like Aubrey's the only girl that I would like want to hang out with after the game's over. And then Scot is the one that talks with her, and we didn't see Scot talk with any of the other girls at the beginning of this episode talking about the whole axe machete dealio.
I feel like Aubrey is one of those people where no one really realizes how much like everyone else likes her. But if she gets to the final three, everyone's gonna be like, "Oh crap, what have I done?" Where it's one of those things where you don't realize how well liked someone is until you get to the finals.
Yeah, sort of like Jeremy, I guess, last season, you know.
Yeah.
So Ty tells Scot and Jason about Aubrey, saying, Aubrey might want to work with us and she's a free agent and whatnot. But then Scot and Jason go swing it back around and being like, let's vote out Aubrey now. And then that's one of the reasons that pushed Ty over the edge this episode because he said, yeah.
I feel like that was kind of his catalyst because, like, Aubrey had already kind of sown the seeds of doubt within him.
Mm-hmm.
And then he had that kick in the butt where he realized they don't actually care anything about what I feel or what I think, especially since they're trying to get out the very person who, like, is trying to care about what he feels and what he thinks. So I think that for Scott and Jason, it was the wrong thing to say at the wrong time.
Yeah,
And,
like this started to like peeve Ty because, you know, he's saying he feels like he doesn't have a say, and Scott and Jason are making all the plans. So even like it might have even started last week too, because we saw like the whole Debbie thing and the whole psychological warfare, and then Ty is just sort of the third wheel of their duo right now. So I mean, it's interesting, and I don't know if this vote we'll talk about later, if it'll actually help him in the end. But it
yeah.
was fun TV to watch, definitely.
So, immunity challenge. That immunity challenge looked really difficult because they had to balance plates with just their fingertips. Did Jeff say that they couldn't touch their palm, or were the plates just not big enough?
Yeah, the plates like were like too far on your wingspan, so then you couldn't like do palming it.
Oh, okay. So they had to keep the plates against some wooden circles with their fingertips, and if the plates dropped, they were out of the game. And like it's one of those things that looks deceptively simple. Where you're just like, oh, I just have to put my hands up here. But if anyone has ever tried balancing stuff on your fingertips, it's not.
Yeah, it was probably like it looked really hot, you know, everyone was sweating, and they were up there. Jason and Aubrey were up there for 1 hour and 15 minutes. So I mean, must have been hard for them, but Joe, he's not even up there for like 5 minutes and he drops already. So it's probably easy for him to just blah, let's go. I'm out already.
Yeah. I feel like that's one of those challenges where once you slip, you kind of slip. Just because it's really difficult to get your plate back into a good position after you've fallen. Like you can get into a slightly better position, but you still can't get back to like where you were before you made the slip up. And I think that that's most evident in like Ty, because like that guy has really great wrist flexibility, I think, and even he wasn't able to like manipulate his hand so he was in a good position again after he slipped that one time.
Yeah, that's why I feel like people sort of dropped out of the challenge, like out of the blue. It wasn't like Jeff saying like, oh, this person is slipping, and then, oh, you know, this person's out. It's like this person's out. Like you didn't even have the camera on them to watch them like struggle. It just bam happened. So I don't know, like Aubrey is like a shining star. How she is so good at challenges. Also, I feel like she's been in like the final two competing and everything. And that's sort of like unexpected for all of us.
I feel like for Aubrey, it's kind of dangerous to show how good she is at the physical side of the game,
True.
though, just because she hasn't been winning. And, like, if you're going to get close to winning but never win, I feel like it's almost better just to drop out earlier just because you don't want to show people how good you are, especially when you're like Aubrey and you're also a really big intellectual threat. So.
Yeah, that is true, because she even says like, oh, I'm not just the brain, you know, I can do these challenges also. So I do, you know, I'm not just on the brains tribe, but I can be Brawn also. So that is definitely, you know, if Aubrey isn't making it to the end, I feel like, you know, if she made it to the end, she definitely has a lot to talk about. But, you know, the other players have to see that Aubrey is really dangerous. She has a lot on her resume right now, and she is like rocking it. I mean, I
I
don't
feel
know
like
how.
we really underestimated her just because of the crying in the first episode. And like I'm pretty sure we all said like, oh, Aubrey's gonna be one of the first people out. But nope, she's Bay. And
True. We all thought she'd be like the first one off of Brain's Tribe because of her like quirky bathing suit at the beginning, and all of her like before interviews were sort of interesting. But I mean, I guess that's how you get cast on the show. You got to be sort of quirky, and then you got to tone it down on when the show actually starts.
Michele has not once mentioned Harry Potter, and I'm a little bit betrayed by that.
True. I want her to say Harry Potter is my like my what, fictional crush or whatever.
Yeah.
So Jason wins the immunity challenge, and then he is on top of the world because he's like, dang, guys, all three of us are safe because I have the immunity and we have two idols, which means you both can be safe because we have the super idol. And then they were all sort of cocky again, being like, we are all safe tonight.
Yeah, I feel like the super idol seems a little bit like stupid when you only have two people who aren't safe in your alliance. Like, it makes just as much sense to play both idols before the votes are read than it does to play the combined idol after the votes are read. Because I feel like that would also eliminate the chance of something happening like it happened this past Wednesday, where someone refuses to give up their idol for the super idol.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I'm like, might as well take the loss. And it could have been a split vote if they have enough people in like some kind of situation where you both would have to play the idol, because if you played the idol beforehand, you are definitely 100% safe. You don't have to rely on trusting another person to give up their idol. Or you could be the person that gets two idols before tribal starts, so then you can play it for yourself if you knew you were the one like getting voted for, so you'd have both parts, so you don't have to rely on someone else. So like playing both idols like individually as individual immunity idols would have like maybe helped in certain situations, because even though you do lose the idol, you are definitely 100% safe. And Scott could have played it this time and just saved himself, voted out with an idol.
I feel like part of it is like it makes sense if you have more than two people who are unsafe in your
Yeah.
alliance, just because there's no way to guarantee everyone's safety without using the super idol. But if you can guarantee both people's safety without using the super idol and without confirming what everyone thinks about the super idol being able to be played after the votes, I feel like that's a good thing for you and your alliance.
Yeah, exactly. This is sort of like being idol stingy. Like in the past, we've seen people that have multiple idols and then they play idols for like two other people. And even though those two people aren't getting voted for, at least, everyone in your alliance is safe. And I mean, one of the examples, mentioning Parvati again, even though it's sort of overused, I guess, but when she gives the idols to Jerry and Sandra, one of them Sandra didn't get any votes, but both of them are safe, so they had the majority later, and then they idled like JT out. So basically, if you did that, like it would have been, both of them could have been safe.
Yeah, so just one of those things that they probably should have considered but didn't. So
Yeah, I feel like another one of like the final straws, if you say, for Ty not wanting to give the idol to Scott was when Jason gives Scott the idol right in front of Ty. Like, yo, man, here's the idol.
yeah, I feel like that kind of shows like not exactly distrust, but kind of like he could have just as easily given it to Ty again to make the super idol, and it's like it's one of those things where I think he was already in that mindset where he just needed the one more straw to like break the camel's back. But then it made for a really interesting tribal.
Yeah, so I mean, Julie is being that double agent, and then Aubrey and Sydney are like, let's vote out Scott to split up the Jason Scott duo, because that's the real pair, because they were like, we can still work with Ty. So going to tribal, all the guys are still hella confident, and they keep talking in tribal, and they're like, Jason's like, people that are winning the challenges aren't going home tonight, aka me, aka Ty, aka Scott.
I feel like Ty, up until like the point where he voted, wasn't even sure, and I think that Scott and Jason unwittingly continued to dig their hole deeper as they were talking at tribal. But like other than that, I feel like tribal was kind of just everyone else who wasn't Jason or Scott was like looking at Ty like, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? So
Yeah, I know. I felt like Ty was a good liar in this tribal council, because when Jeff's like, yo, Ty, you're being really quiet right now, Ty is like, I'm committed to Jason 100%. And yo, that was like, heck yeah, good bluffing, dude.
I think that the best part of this episode was Scott's face when he realized that Ty wasn't giving him the idol, just because it was just so unreal. Like, I can't believe you're actually doing this. And I said that this was gonna happen, and I'm really happy that it did.
Right, I know. I think this is both like this is something both of us mentioned. Like, this would be so funny if they got like if someone didn't give up the other part of the idol and someone got voted out. Because this is something you can only dream of happening. It was like crazy good TV, whether or not it was the right move for certain people or the wrong move for certain people. It was just so funny to see everyone's faces. Like their faces and reactions were so priceless. The jury was like, OMG. The people on still on the show were like, what the heck? And then Scott and Jason were like, oh damn.
So I think that kind of like sets the stage up for next week, and I feel like next week's episode is going to be kind of difficult to top that, just because like there's no way any crazy crap can like that can happen again, just because it just can't.
Yeah, Ty is so savage. I mean, that'll go good. Should we do good move, bad move?
I mean, I don't think I think Kai is really the only one to discuss for good move, bad move.
Oh, for real? I wrote something for like mostly everyone.
Really, just because I feel like in order to do good move, bad move, they should have to have had something to do with the move.
Oh yeah, I've sort of like inferred like so I started with like good move like for the people that actually were involved, but then like the side effects can have a good effect, bad effect on everyone else in the game.
I feel like that then calling it good move, bad move is like a misnomer, though.
Okay, good effect, bad effect.
Thank you.
Good thing, bad thing. So, I mean, I sort of lumped Sydney, Aubrey, and Joe together because they were the ones voting that were in on the plan to vote Scott. And I said it was a good move for them because they got Scott out with an idol. So Jason lost his idol. Scott's out with an idol in his pocket. And now the power trio is split up.
Also, I think it's a good move for them because one idol is a lot less dangerous than two idols. Like, no matter how you split it. So, even though they still have Ty's idol left to worry about, neutralizing one was a really good thing.
Yeah. So Michele, I said good move, though she was left out of the vote, which may mean, she's on the bottom of that alliance, so she might want to flip or something. But right now, if she sticks with the girls and Joe, she's solid for a few votes until she has to try to stir things up to try to get to the top of the alliance.
Yeah.
Julia, I said it could be good or bad, depending next week if she flops to Jason's side, because I don't know, I feel like right now Julia flopping to Jason's side isn't like the smartest move because that's 2 people versus 5 others when there's 7 people left. That is not the majority. And then it depends if Ty is going to stick with Jason and Julia or flip with the girls' side, which I feel like he's flipping to the girls' side at this point.
Yeah, I feel like for Julia, since she's been playing the middle so much, it all depends how she plays it next week. Because, like, I feel like even if she does stick with the other girls, it's not going to help her that much in the long run. Because Jason's still going to be the vote for next week, no matter what. If, like, she flopped to be with the girls, and then after that, she's on the bottom of their alliance. And so it really only bought her one more week.
Yeah, that is true. Because, she would be at the bottom of the girl thing. So, if, like, even if this is her move to try to, like, switch things up, it's a commendable game for an 18-year-old. I mean, trying to make these things, even if they don't work out, it's commendable. So, Ty, I'm going to say this is a bad move, though it was hecka cool to see and have it play out. I mean, I feel like Ty is now definitely not getting to the end of the game because if he was stuck with Scott and Jason, they have this and they have Julia and they have the advantage and they have idols. Like, he could have made it to the end if, Scott and Jason didn't pick him over Julia or whatever. But then he could have had a chance of winning. Now I feel like no one wants to go with Ty to the end, and Jason's pissed at Ty.
Yeah, and I feel like that would lose if Ty did get to the end somehow. He wouldn't get as many votes just because Ty, in doing that, kind of made himself a hypocrite because he's always talking about how loyalty and kindness and whatever means so much to him, and then he just like rips out the throat of someone in the alliance.
Yeah, I feel it. I feel it. So Jason, I said bad move because he lost his number one ally.
Bad effect.
Yeah, bad effect. He lost his number one ally, and he no longer has ties. So basically, he has no one unless Julia wants to hit him up and be an alliance. But technically, if the girls and everyone want to get Ty out next week, Jason could be like, yeah, I'm on board with that. Let's vote Ty and like be another vote for them to make another week. But I feel like Jason holds too many grudges. He's not going to want to talk to anyone.
Yeah, he's going to try to do that psychological warfare crap.
Not again. He's mentioned it in this episode. He talked about it last episode. Like, it's done. It's over. You gotta stop.
Anyway, next time on Survivor.
Yeah, I think we still have one more medevac left, so that might be happening soon. That's crazy. Yo, that might switch up the numbers because it's probably going to be someone in the larger group alliance. So, if it's 6 people, if it happens next week or even the week after, that could allow Julia and Jason, and even if Ty, if he goes with them, to get the majority. That's crazy.
I would feel really bad if that happened because that would mean that Aubrey would have been screwed over by a medevac twice.
Yeah, because I feel like it's going to be someone in her close alliance going home. That would be so funny, though. She can cry again. More points for you.
Yeah. Anyway, speaking of prophecy points, because I don't think there's really anything left to say about what's happening next time other than our guessing, but we'll say the prophecy points for this past week and then our predictions for next week. So the computer team has 102.5 points.
Oh, we basically should just. Oh man, she's dominating.
No, we are not giving up.
We are not giving up. She's dominating us.
Scott wins half a point for mentioning Russell Hantz. Jason wins 2 points for immunity. Ty wins 2 points for reward. Michele wins 2 points for reward. Scott wins 4 points for #WoW. Ty gets 5 for name of the episode, and Scott gets 5.5 for his placement points.
Yeah, so I have like a 50-point deficit to make up. I have 54.5 points. I got +2 from Julia winning the reward, and then +2 from Julia crying from the love from home letters. So, maybe a miracle can happen. We'll see.
I have 61.5 points. I didn't go up or down this week. But, considering I only have 2 people, I'm considering this a win. So.
Yep, Alyssa and I both have 2 people left, and the computer team now has 4. So basically, the computer team's racking in all the points because definitely having more people on your team allows it to have a greater chance of getting, a hashtag or naming the episode because you have more people, or even winning immunities. So now it's sort of rigged against us.
Now we're getting closer to equality, so we might have a fighting chance of, if not completely overcoming her, then at least closing the gap.
Hopefully. So next time I am saying Julia is going to be voted out, which is sort of sad because she's on my team and then I'm only going to have 1 person left on my prophecy point team. But I really don't think that the larger group will want to vote out Jason because right now, since he's so unlikable, you can sort of just bring him to the end or whatever. Because he is unliked, he might not get a lot of votes at the end, but Jason is like a powerhouse crazy and he might try to blow things up, so then he might get voted out and not be like goaded to the end to the game. And I mean, I feel like right now there are targets on Aubrey, Sydney, and Julia. And I feel like Julia will be at the short end of the stick from flip-flopping or like whatever, being in the middle and talking to everyone.
I think that Ty is going to be voted out just because Aubrey and Sydney both have targets on their back. I think they're going to try to divert it to someone else who is like who has an equally likely chance of winning the game. And since like everyone pretty much likes Ty, I feel like that they'll use that against him. And so that will make him more likely to be voted out, especially considering that Jason and Julia would probably be on board if the Majority Alliance brought that to them.
Yeah, it'll be crazy. So you think he's going to be voted out with an idol?
Yeah, just because I feel like since he just made the flip, he's not going to expect them to like go right around and stab him in the back. So I think that the quick turnaround will work in their favor.
Tis true, tis true. And then Rachel won't get any more points because playing an immunity idol gets you points, and playing it successfully gets you more points.
Anyways, we're really excited to see what happens next week. We're hoping that the computer team begins its slow spiral into doom, and we're also really hoping that we'll see whether or not there's another medevac, because that's what our sources on the inside tell us. But so we're really excited for next week, and we're really excited to get to podcast with you. So please like, comment, and subscribe. We love you, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you so much for watching.
Bye.